What's going on, you guys? If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and welcome back to another video. So officially when I'm doing this video, it's July 3rd. So what does that mean? It means it has been 3 months since I have been made a widow. I have not received the autopsy report yet, which is something I actually have to submit for. I can't just go up to the police station or the medical examiner and say, hey, I want an autopsy report. That is not something, obviously, I'm going to share when I find out officially what was the COD. But it is something that I will have to live with and kind of manage because it'll feel like it's just it's like a new wound all over again when I find out officially what had happened. So there's that. But it's been 3 months now. So that is a big deal that we have made it 3 months. And it feels like it hasn't been that long. It kind of feels like time is going by super duper fast. But because of the fact that I very rarely leave unless I have errands to do, it makes sense. Right now it's a struggle to leave the house. It is summer right now. We go outside early in the morning because it gets so hot and come inside and I clean. I do whatever the dogs need me to do. I take care of the dogs. I'm watching a dog right now climb on top of another dog to try to get in a tote. I think it's Rainey climbing on top of Zero to get in the tote. Oh, she's so much smaller than what is necessary to get in the totes, but she's trying. With Zero, it was a struggle when he first passed away. I really don't really know how to explain it. Zero had a seizure. He had really bad skin allergies, and he just wasn't doing overall very well when he passed away. But luckily Zero was on the up and up, especially these last couple weeks and these last 2 months. The first month was the hardest on Zero and on Rue and the other dogs. A lot of the dogs had not been around him very long. He had not spent a lot of time with them unless it was Ruby, Rosemary, Rue, Zero, and dogs like that. He did not spend a lot of time with Elle or Morning or Rhea or even Fuzzy or Pandora, etc., etc. But he did spend a lot of time with the ones that I had mentioned. And Duke, he did spend a lot of time with Duke, but Duke was not very affected by it, not as much as you would think. But in general, the whole thing was super hard for all of us. We really did suffer quite a bit, and the loss was incredibly damaging to all of us, especially to the dogs. When he passed away, Rue actually had a miscarriage of her puppies, and that was a whole thing that I ended up having to really take her to the vet and get her looked at. Luckily, it was just from stress. She ended up having a little blue boy, and that was it compared to what she had last time, which again was stress. So it's safe to say it's been very hard. We are managing as best as we can when it's just me and the dogs. I had somebody ask me today, can you drive 10 hours there and 10 hours back to meet me? I said, no, that is almost impossible for me to do. That is 20 hours. I don't trust anybody to watch my dogs. And I'm not going to leave them alone for 20 hours. And that's just 20 hours bare minimum. I would have to stop and stay somewhere because I cannot drive 20 hours straight. I'm like, are you out of your mind? And they gave me the longest drive compared to themselves. They did not give themselves a very long drive. I just said, no, it can't happen. My spouse just passed. There's not much I can do. And the last thing you ever want to say to somebody that's struggling with this kind of stuff and say, oh, I understand my mom just passed. Oh, I understand my brother just passed. Having lost grandparents and family, losing family is different than losing your spouse. It is very different because your spouse is somebody you're building your life with, and 9 times out of 10, you are the one that found them. And I was the unlucky person that found my ex. I mean, compared to, getting a phone call about my grandfather, which that was a very sufferable loss, but compared to getting the call about my grandfather, that's nowhere near as bad as losing my spouse. And having talked to multiple people that have lost family members and then lost a spouse, it is very different losing a spouse compared to losing family members to everybody. You cannot compare somebody's pain, obviously. So I definitely recommend not doing that because it is like the worst way to say, I understand what you're going through, which you really usually don't understand what they're going through. With your parents or with siblings or with other family members, you are not making a life with them. You're making a life with a spouse. You rely on a second income, most likely. And you sleep beside them every night, and now the house is completely empty. You don't hear them anymore. That is the difference. So, you can't minimize somebody else's pain. Losing a loved one is still losing a loved one, but you cannot compare your pain to somebody else's if you have not lost a spouse. It is a very different feeling. It is very different. There are recognizable differences, especially when you roll over and they're not there. compared to, just in general, you can't compare somebody's pain to somebody else's, but you can't minimize the damage that it causes losing a spouse by saying, I lost this person. I know what you're going through. No, you don't. Until you lose a spouse, which I've talked this over with my mentor, who says, I've heard the same thing, but you can't. The only pain that I can compare myself to is hers. Each other losing a spouse. But I can definitely say without a doubt, I do not recommend this for anybody. I do not ever wish this upon anybody, losing a spouse like this. Not divorce, because people even say, oh, I lost my husband and my wife and I got divorced. I know how you feel. No, you don't. That is very, very different from actually physically losing a loved one, a spouse that you will never see again. You will never see their Facebook messages. You will never see a text message. You will never hear about them in your entire life for the rest of your life. It is very, very different, totally recognizable differences, but you can't minimize the pain of loss, but there are very, very big differences between losing certain family members and a spouse. But, we're doing as best as we can. We are surviving. Tomorrow is July 4th. It's very, very weird being by myself for the holidays. Christmas is going to be even harder, as well as Thanksgiving, because it was me and him, myself and him, and then his family. Well, his mom has since passed away, and I have cut his entire family off just about. I will not talk to his family as long as I live anymore. Most likely, most of them. And that's just, it is what it is. But, I do have my family around a little bit, but I'm not going to leave my dogs all day for any reason. So, for the most part, I'm trying to figure out stuff I can do with the dogs. I got to figure out where to put a Christmas tree now. This will actually be my first Christmas here, but hopefully my last one. But at this point, I don't know. At this point, we're all going through a lot. We're all kind of suffering in our own way, but we are all managing. And I'm doing as best as I can with everything, all things considered. I'm ready to get the autopsy report back, obviously. But it's been 3 months, and time has gone by very, very fast. But I feel like I'm not floundering, but I'm just staying the same, and I'm not going in circles, but I'm not going anywhere. Right now, I don't have to go anywhere. Right now, I just focus on the dogs and do what I have to do. Luckily, the dogs keep me pretty well grounded with everything. There are some dogs that is hard to see growing up because they were around before he passed, so it's really, really hard to see everything, how it's going. But we're doing as best as we can. We are managing, but I just kind of wanted to do another month recap because we're 3 months in, and I don't really know how to feel right now anymore. But anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as you'll show you guys, I'll see you guys next time in the next video. See you guys later.